My oral presentation topic focuses on non-governmental organizations' role in disasters. When considering disaster response and recovery, it is known that there are coordinated efforts between multiple public, private, and non-governmental organizations, NGOs, to successfully respond to a disaster. Some well-known NGOs include the Red Cross and the Salvation Army. Non-governmental organizations can be described as a distinct category of civil society and a distinct group that is non-governmental in nature and founded with not-for-profit or non-profit-oriented objectives. Some of NGOs' goals include risk reduction. While there are many known non-governmental organizations that assist with disaster relief and emergency management procedures, there are several lesser-known NGOs that specialize in a variety of products, services, and functions. One of the common lesser-known NGOs that has done much good for society includes World Renew. This NGO offers assistance for underfunded disasters in which federal funding and private insurance doesn't offer enough compensation to those who can't afford to save themselves from the financial losses that they occurred due to the disaster. One of the most regarded times where the NGO known as World Renew was applied to a disaster event was in December of 2015 in Missouri due to widespread damage caused by flooding. A federal emergency was declared on January 2, 2016 by President Obama. While federal funding was administered to those in need during this time, there were still limitations, particularly at the individual and family level. In this instance, NGOs like World Renew can offer financial assistance to victims who are struggling to replace necessity items that were lost or to conduct home repairs not covered by insurance. NGOs have worked their way up in recognition amongst disaster relief and emergency management officials by building their relevance and legitimacy to address gaps and problems at global and local levels. One example of NGOs being a part of a global level of disaster relief includes the Disaster Risk Reduction, or DRR, ecosystem. This agenda attempts to shape both humanitarian and emergency action since the DRR operates at different levels when needed. The diagram on the right displays the disaster risk management cycle, which illustrates the initial disaster that occurs, followed by a response. Soon after, rehabilitation and recovery begins, while prevention and mitigation are also conducted. Lastly, preparedness occurs, which ultimately completes the cycle. NGOs also work with governments during disaster operations to provide essential services that may not be available through certain public agencies. One common example of this includes community crisis counseling. Below is a list of a few essential sample services that are often provided by NGOs, including but not limited to emergency shelter operations, search and rescue, mass feeding, pet rescue and care, and sandbagging. When looking at the downsides of the role that NGOs play in disaster relief, we take a look back on the case studies that we have worked on during our class. Although many NGOs do great good for our communities, there are some downsides that were noted in our class textbook. Throughout many of the case studies we have analyzed so far, serious breakdowns have occurred due to non-governmental actors and elected officials becoming involved in the response process of the disaster risk management cycle. However, the majority of NGOs offer many benefits to those who have been impacted by disastrous events. Ultimately, non-governmental organizations' role in disasters is beneficial to those who may need it. Lastly, here are some of the references and citations that I used during my oral presentation.